I heard a few chuckles out there, so I'm taking it to mean that there are a few other people in this room that are familiar with the television show Love It or List It. Am I right? A few of you are, some of you might not be, but I'll bring you up to speed on the television show. It starts out typically with a couple who are in their home. And there's a point at which the couple has decided that they are no longer content with their home. It's either too small, it's outdated, or there's something there that just makes it for them the time to do something else with this space. Enter the host of the show, a real estate agent, and a designer. One of part of the couple, they're ready to move. Let's just start over, find a new place, we'll have a new house, and everything will be fine. The other person, no, not so fast. Where we're living is fine. We maybe need to do some renovation, some upgrade, but once we get done, we'll have the place that we want. And so then the show goes on with the real estate agent taking the couple, looking at places, while the designer whom they talked with has taken their ideas and looked at the space and brought contractors in, and they're trying to transform the house into what the couple says it is that they want. And they have the back and forth that goes on between the one who wants to move and the one who wants to stay, and the real estate agent, and this house isn't quite what we want, that house isn't quite what we want. The designer gets the word from the contractor, everything's going fine till we went down in the basement, now we got to dig up the pipes and everything's not right there. So there's all of this drama that's going on, and finally we reach the end of the show. The couple has seen several houses from which to choose in terms of the one that they might decide that they're going to buy and move into. But then also the designer has finished with the renovation of the house, and the couple is there with the choice. Do we stay where we are and love it, or do we list it? Put the house up for sale and move into the house and buy the house that we saw. And that's where the show comes to that tension, that drama there. Are we going to love it or list it? And you might be looking at that thinking, okay, but what does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with Open Heart Spiritual Center? What does that have to do with my spiritual journey and my spiritual reality, and all of that? I'll tell you, you might or might not be like me. But I know for me that when I found these New Thought, Ancient Wisdom teachings, all of that, I became very excited about the kinds of things that I heard, the things that it offered me, how it answered for me questions that I had for a very long time coming through traditional religion that just didn't quite answer things for me. My intuitive sense for me didn't quite cut it. And there were some things that I kind of knew in the back of my mind, even though I tried taking the traditional route, that just never satisfied me. And yet, when I found the teachings that said things like, change your thinking, change your life, that was powerful for me. It spoke to me. I saw opportunities there, and many of the other things that were a part of it. And so I started my journey, and we began with open heart. We began moving along with this place and wonderful people that have been a part of Open Heart for all these years. And along that journey, I discovered the teachings of a man by the name of Eckhart Tolle, that some of you may be familiar with, his book, The Power of Now. I remember the first time reading the book, I was so excited. Wow, this is great. Live in the present moment. There is only the now. That's all we have. And I remember excitedly talking to a friend of mine, and I was trying to explain the book. My friend got the book, and I was trying to tell her all about the book and everything like that. She kind of burst my bubble because she summed up the book in very succinctly. She said, watch the thing. I went, okay, but I had all this explanation and everything, but I realized she was right. Watch the thing. Being in the now, watch the thinking. We're not our thoughts. watch the thing. But I started thinking, so, but what is it? Do I, as Eckhart Tolle would in a sense maybe be talking about that we live in the present moment so we sort of love it, what's happening? Or when Ernest Holmes changed your thinking, changed your life, so then kind of listen, move on to something different, something new. Where do I go with this? What do I do with that? So I found myself in that space and place. And some of you may be there with me or found yourself with me, something like that happens. So what is it? Do I do this way or I do that way? Because certainly there is something to be said for living in the present moment. Byron Katie says that when I argue with reality, I only lose every time. Because if we try to argue with what is, we're in for a rude awakening. Because what's happening in the present moment just is. We have to be in a place and space where we accept that there's a point at which what is happening with us in that moment, there is nothing that we can do to change the reality of what's happening. It's there. It is unfolding. It has happened for us. It is there. There is the present moment. And accepting that and realizing that is the only way that we can move from that point. It's not giving up. It's not giving in. It's accepting the fact that here's where I am. I'm being present in this moment. And the thing of it is that if we realize that, but we realize that there's more to it than that, and we don't get caught up in what Brian Johnson likes to call the Tolle trap, where we feel like that if I'm in the now, if I'm in the present moment, that's all I can do, and whatever happens, it just keeps coming, it just keeps happening. No! The now truly is our point of power. When we realize that every situation is neither positive or negative, it's empty. We feel it by our interpretation of it. We feel it by how we think about and we process the things. But if we can stay focused, if we can remain in the now, things can begin to transform and change. And that's what speaks to me. Eckhart Tolle, in his book, A New Earth, talked about one of his neighbors who came knocking on his door right around 11 o'clock at night. And she was all excited and frustrated and everything else. And he reluctantly opened the door and she kind of pushes her way past and goes in and sits down. And she has all of these papers and everything. And she starts going on talking about those blood-sucking lawyers, those no good people and all of that. And she's just going on and on and on. And Tolle's kind of at a loss as to so he sits down, as I imagine, very calmly, very carefully, very quietly, and begins listening to her story. And her story is that the building in which they live, she stopped paying some of the fees that they had as a part of the association there because some of the improvements they had promised they had not been making. And she decided, well, if you ain't going to do your part, I ain't doing my part. So now they were going to take her to court, and she had all these papers and all this stuff, and he said he just very calmly listened. He remained in the present. And after a while, she, in the middle of her rant, she just stopped. And she said, this really isn't all that important, is it? And he said, no, it's not. She apologized for keeping him up that late and intruding upon his privacy, and she leaves. And he says the next day he saw her walking outside, and she comes up to him and she says, I don't know what you did to me, but I slept last night like a baby, and I haven't done so in years. I don't know what you did to me. And he said that it wasn't what he did, it was what he didn't do. That while she ranted and raved and did all of those things, he stayed focused where he was. He stayed in the moment and allowed her to have her space. He didn't do it sometimes I find myself doing, and But when people come talk to me, I'm trying to find a solution, or I'm trying to find a story that matches theirs, rather than just being present, being focused. And that's how, when we remain so, we can begin to see solutions. We can begin to see things happen. He didn't do anything but listen, but he listened with his full self, his entire self. And that's not an easy thing to do. And you all know the exercise that sometimes I will do if I do a centering moment or I teach something, that how when we learn to feel the aliveness in a part of our body, I usually take the hand and it just, if we were to have our hand there and ask ourselves, how do I know that the hand is there without moving it, without looking at it or anything else? We feel the life force in it. And as we feel the life force in it, while we're doing that, the thoughts that normally run through our head cease, because we're in the present moment. And it's there that things begin to happen. So yes, we can love it because we accept what is, but we also know that there's an opportunity for change. Tony says that when things happen to us that we don't like, one of the tricks that we can use is we can, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Why is this going on? Why is that happening? Why are those things happening? We can do this. We can make a shift, and we can, in our minds, begin to say to ourselves that this is like something I scripted to happen to help me to see just how wonderful and marvelous and magnificent I am, and the universe is to move me through this, and move me to where it is I want to be. Which brings us to change your thinking, change your life. The things that we also hear, the things that are also powerful. Because again, it's not what happens to us, but it's the way that we see and interpret and think about those things which happen. It becomes vitally important. And when we learn how to do that, when we learn to say that what is happening to me, what is happening, and we realize those things, we can use the opportunity to make the shift. I was thinking about how when I went through my own health challenge, my health crisis, that particular day because there was a part of me that was saying, this has happened to you. When we were in the emergency room and the doctor said to me, I know what's going on with you and it's going to take 9 hours of open heart surgery. All I could think about at that moment was, whatever you have to do, doctor, let's do it. I didn't think about the recovery process. I didn't think about the fact I'd be on a table for 9 hours, my chest would be split open, that I would have all of these months of things of recovery and all the things. All I knew then, I wanted the pain that was the worst pain I had ever felt in my life, and the fact that I had no feelings in my legs, and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't even think about dying or any of that. All I was thinking of is in that moment to get me to where I need to be. But I remember a particular day when I was in my mind processing, okay, all of this has happened to you, and you stand there before those people at Open Heart every week, and you tell them about what a great and powerful and magnificent person they are, and how they are expressions and emanations of a great and magnificent, powerful God or universe or spirit or source or whatever it is. What is it? And I remember that day I'm sitting in a wheelchair in front of the sink. My teeth, I wanted to brush for the first time. I finally felt well enough to even do that, so I'm sitting in the wheelchair. I don't even have the strength to hold the toothbrush up by itself. I have to lean my elbow on the sink and stick the toothbrush in my mouth and kind of move back and forth on the sink. But I remember saying to myself, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like this. And I remember I broke down crying, just trying to brush my teeth. But there was a moment in me that said, and you don't have to be. I don't want to be like this. And you don't have to be. And it was at that point that I started to realize what the entire change your thinking, change your life was all about. Because I resolved in that moment, no matter what it took, I was going to do it. No matter what it took. I was not a victim. I was not somebody that this had happened to. I was somebody that now I'm in this moment, this is happening, I know it has happened, there's no getting around it, no number of affirmations or anything else to try to deny that it's not there. He said, I'm not sick, I'm not sick. At that moment, there I was. But there was something in me that says, but you don't have to be this way. And no matter what it took, the months of rehab, relearning to walk again, doing all of the other kinds of things, whatever it took, the people here at Open Heart that brought me food and called and checked on me, they did all of those things, to pray for me, all of that, what it took to change your thinking, change your life. And I realize today that it's not an either or thing. It's not a love it or list it thing. It's not a accept where you are or change your thinking, change your life. It's a both and. That when we find ourselves in whatever situation or circumstance it might be, where we are in that present moment is where we are. That's the truth. That's that viral video that went around about that little boy who said, that's on life, that's on life. That's where it is. In that present moment, whatever is happening, whatever is going on, whatever you are going through, whatever it is that has a challenge for you, whatever it is that might be the appearance for you, that's where you are. And we learn to embrace that. We understand that. We're not giving up. We're not giving in. We are saying that in this moment, I know something powerful about to happen. I know that the magnificence and the God-magnificence that I am is getting ready to go to work. And then we start to see what it is that we wish to experience. We begin setting our intention. We begin using our affirmations, using the tools, affirmative prayer and spiritual mind treatment, not focus on the problem, not focus on what's going wrong, but focus on where we want to be, focus where it is that we wish to see, understanding that and knowing that. Athletes will tell you that when it comes to throwing a ball and getting into where they needed to be, they don't look where things are, but they look to where they needed to be, and they deliver it there. And that's what this is all about, delivering it there, choosing our thoughts, choosing our reality, choosing what we pay attention to, choosing our conversation. Ernest Holmes says, so let our conversation be in heaven. And what he means by that we're not talking about heavenly things, but we are talking from a highly exalted point of view, that is how we see the world. That's how we converse about the world. That's how we experience the world. That's what we look for in the world. And when we set our course, when we begin operating from that, we begin seeing things change. We begin seeing things transform. We begin seeing things being a new reality for us. So we can love it and list it, if you will. We can change our thinking and live in the now, because it's all God. It's all God. And so
Joanne that does it. I've been working on this song since December, and she sang a snippet of it last week, but it's originally by Nat King Cole. It's Nature Boy. Love synchronicity.
yes.
There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far, very far. Oh, thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.
Bravo!
Listed, yes. Now I'm happy and I will lift my voice to speak of heavenly things. Yes, I am here and I'm creating what I want to be. Yes to all that I am now and can be. I release